celebrating 9 years of podcast excellence, the King of Podcasts Radio Network proudly presents the Wrestling is Real podcast, because wrestling needs us.
So there was quite a lot of creativity going on with SummerSlam tonight as we record this episode 710 of the Wrestling is Real podcast. This is KLP. Thanks for listening in, and I hope you will always consider, if you're listening to this show, make sure to go ahead and hit the subscribe button if you're listening on the YouTube channel, or if you are listening on the audio portion of the podcast, where you can always catch it at wrestlingisreal.com, and then you can hear it distributed throughout all major podcast platforms: Amazon, Apple, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Google, and all the others. And remember, to Apple Podcasts and Spotify, you can rate and review. Make sure to do that too. In the meantime, very eventful SummerSlam tonight, and I really think I did a good job of just taking the title of this episode and just sandwiching what this was. A statement was made in the post-match angle of the opening match tonight with Bianca Belair and Becky Lynch to start off the night, and then tractor pull. But the tractor had to be the onus that gave the match, the last man standing match with Brock Lesnar and Roman Reigns, something so they could be able to book themselves out of the quandary that Triple H was left with, now taking over creative. And you could tell that tonight, I guess wherever Triple H is right now as head of creative and whatever he's doing right now with the booking team, I mean, he's doing some changes that are his own, and they make a lot of sense with what he's doing. And he decided to go ahead and turn a couple of formidable changes, decided to go with a couple of logical character changes that made sense. Becky Lynch basically goes back face, and Ronda Rousey goes back heel. And all's well with the world again, because it makes sense. That's what the crowd wants. And that is exactly what Triple H wanted to do on this show. And on the women's side, that's something that they wanted to try to get off the bat real quick, was try to go ahead and work some things out on both of those women's divisions to get something a little bit different. Now, the SmackDown Women's title is still going to be a bit of an issue where they're still going to probably extend Liv Morgan and Ronda Rousey going forward. They figured that out. Bianca Belair, they closed out the Becky Lynch feud, turned her face, and now we have this new faction. We'll talk about that in a moment. Logan Paul, Pat McAfee, when you're giving our celebrity matches, the matches with those that are not being very much spending a lot of time in the ring, limited ring experience. Logan Paul excelled tonight, better than I actually thought he would do by himself. I mean, he kind of gave like a Bad Bunny level performance. But, I mean, Logan Paul is pretty adept. He's athletic. From boxing to wrestling isn't that much of is somewhat of a stretch, but not too much when you think about it. And Logan Paul did a very good job. You could tell he trained a lot. You could tell that he was really into it. But no matter how well he did in that match, I don't think it was ever going to turn face after all was that. But that was what they were left with. They had to finish the storyline with Logan Paul. I mean, he still got the win over The Miz, but The Miz was getting some of the cheers because people just had a hatred for Logan Paul outside of it. And there's no storyline you could do to change that, which is the case. Theory and his role, you kind of felt like it was going to be a repeat of Money in the Bank, where another match where, he loses to Lashley again and then tries to inject himself into the main event, which worked out well for him last time doing Money in the Bank, but this time did not. In a wild match anyway, even though I, vaguely predicted that Theory would actually become champion after all said and done, I know that wasn't true. I mean, I would, don't think I'm not was going to think that wasn't actually going to happen. But it wasn't out of the realm of possibility. Let's just say it like that. And then we get the Judgment Day now having a purpose, because now Edge is going to go ahead and feud against them. How they're going to pull that off and do something with it. I mean, Judgment Day hasn't been established yet. All he did was basically have enough time to turn on Edge. But nothing's happened with Judgment Day since. So I guess now Edge comes back in here, and now he's going to be brought in to do something with Judgment Day, because even though he doesn't want to be part of the faction because of what the direction was, I don't know what you do now. Do you find a way to interject them back? Like, the plans for Judgment Day and what they did with Judgment Day was kind of off. And I don't know what you do now to correct it, but I think that's what they're going to try to do, is correct the Judgment Day and bring Edge back into the storyline with this group and see what they can do with them. I just don't know what it's going to be. And as for the Mysterios, they finished off the Judgment Day, and now Judgment Day needs to work with Edge. They need to find purpose. However they figure that out, that's going to be the interesting part going into the tomorrow. We just have to find out. Now, as I said, Logan Paul did a great job. On the other celebrity side, with Pat McAfee, he struggled a bit tonight. I'm sure you could say some conditions, when it comes to what he has to do on the top rope and working in the night, and maybe if there was some condensation, some sweat, things like that were making the ropes kind of slippery and making it tough for him to go and do some moves. He executed everything, but it wasn't perfect. So, if you're going to criticize Pat McAfee for style points, you can absolutely do that. And there's plenty of my fellow podcasting brethren that will do that tonight and will criticize that part, along with everything else they want to say. But then the other part they're going to do is they're all going to praise Triple H. They're going to say, oh, this is the best thing ever. There's not going to be that much of a change. I said this ad nauseum on the show this past week, because there's not much you can change right away. Adding some cosmetic changes by adding a few more women into the mix of the women's division on Raw and using Raw as a pretext to really kind of build things up. There wasn't so much that was done to really build things up over on the SmackDown side. Raw obviously is the show where there's a whole lot of time to do some things. Plus, there's a whole lot of time to go and introduce some new characters or introduce some new wrinkles into storylines to give us something to work with and try to correct the ship on some of the illogical decisions that were made in creative, which is what's going on with this, which is what I felt like they were doing on a number of things on this show tonight. And that's where I do think things went. Overall, the show is really good. I gave it an A. The one match I thought was a bit of the weaker one was the Happy Corbin Pat McAfee feud, which they gave us the match. Pat McAfee got the win. It was a bit sloppy. And, it was a match that was thrown together. It wasn't completely thrown together, but they did give it a good heat. But I think to get Pat McAfee this featured match and how they pulled it off, the match struggled to live up to the heat of the build-up, which is where I felt things were. Going into the matches tonight, starting off with Bianca Belair and Becky Lynch, Raw Women's Championship. The difference between Bianca Belair going back to WrestleMania last year, and then when they gave that detour and the decision to bring back Becky Lynch, because you had already had a number of things going on where a number of stars are going to return after pandemic, after Thunderdome. Becky Lynch was one of those. They didn't have to pull the trigger on her right then and there, but she was ready to come back. And when she did come back, they decided to go the route and have Becky Lynch take that 26-second victory on Bianca Belair after Sasha Banks, notably, absent from that match originally. And what they did with Becky Lynch ever since, turning her heel and going a little more in this route of going crazy after she loses the belt to Bianca Belair afterwards. And Bianca comes back, and now she's champion again. We're back to the same square one once again. But she won at WrestleMania over Becky. And then she got to win again over Becky at SummerSlam. That neutralizes the heel turn that Becky Lynch had. Takes that away now. And things are right. Tonight got to be the correction, the full correction of the Bianca Belair push that was abruptly ended at SummerSlam last year. It shouldn't have happened as it did right then, but that would probably be a Vince McMahon decision. With the Triple H decision, I would probably think that Bianca being in that main event is the right move. And the truth is, Vince was wrong on Bianca Belair. Bianca Belair should be, and she is now solidly entrenched and chiseled as a main event star in that company. I'm going to say Bianca Belair now fits at the level. She is exactly at the level of the Horsewomen. With Charlotte, with Bayley, with Paige, with AJ Lee, with Sasha Banks, with Becky Lynch. She fits in. She is in that same category. She's with that class of the top women's wrestlers they've had in that company. She's great. She's so likable, very strong, pretty good match they got for 15 minutes. This crowd was hot. They really were into Bianca, and I think that would be the same where it is wherever she goes. She's a star. She's an absolute star now, and you can keep her up there for as long as she wants to be, because that's where she is right now. Instead of going Rhea Ripley, instead of, well, they could. I mean, there might have been some other stars they could have had that were being built up to go after Bianca Belair. Instead, we get this right here, where Bayley returns, which was great. I mean, you want Bayley and Bianca going after each other. I'm all in. I love it. But what we got this time was a repeat of 2017. This is like Paige returning and creating Absolution, which we know was Mandy Rose and Sonya Deville. Remember how that worked out? But I mean, Paige got hurt. But the idea was, it's kind of a repeat. So Bayley comes back with a faction, but this faction, sure, it might have been a couple of NXT superstars they brought on board, but two superstars who were featured endeavored and were let go. In Dakota Kai and Io Shirai. I was like, wow. You know, these were stalwarts in the women's division on the black and gold. And so, I mean, they didn't necessarily go anywhere. Well, Io Shirai that wasn't necessarily dropped from the roster. She had not been featured endeavored, as far as I know. She was still under contract. So maybe things were worked out. And there's word now that Naomi and Sasha Banks might be able to reconcile the situation now that Vince is gone. That might be just enough to go ahead and have them to return with the company's good graces, allowing them to come back and kind of, brushing under the rug all the stuff that happened since May. I don't know if that's going to happen, but the changes in management could allow that change to happen and allow a return for Naomi and Sasha Banks. We don't know when that's going to be. Maybe that's being done behind the scenes, but we haven't heard a release. Yeah, have we heard anything about a rumor of a return? So I'll keep an eye on it. I'll wait for the surprise. Many others can speculate, but I'll wait for the return. Eventual. So Bayley, she comes back with Dakota Kai and Io Shirai. That's an interesting choice. Now, Dakota Kai, I didn't know they were going to bring her back. I mean, they gave her so much time down there in NXT. And it was one of the few that never got that call up. And now she's here after the whole feud with Raquel Rodriguez, right? And Io Shirai, having such a stellar career. I mean, she was always great down at NXT before her work in Japan. And coming in here, I was actually surprised that Io Shirai never got pushed up to that main roster. This was a move I really thought Io Shirai, in any sense, was a logical choice to bring up. Dakota Kai, I don't know. But she's here. And, it's one of those things where it's like, when I looked at what Dakota Kai did, she's good. I mean, they definitely changed her into the heel route to make her a much more developed character. They did do some of that with her based on the changes to her original character after she had that War Games match where she went ahead and turned on, I forget the name of the girl. I can't remember now. I had to look it up. Tegan Nox. I don't know why I forgot about that, but I remember when they did that turn where Dakota Kai turned on Tegan Nox in the War Games match. That was a pretty good turn for her. And the direction they gave her was really good, and she followed along really well. And her work in ring is really good. So to see her come in here now, that's all right with me. It's not my decision anyway, but let's see what they do. But I think having Bayley now take the reins of these two as the mouthpiece makes great sense. And I think that's what's going to happen is that if you're going to bring Bayley back, and she even said it when she went out to the ring to confront Bianca, did you think I was going to come out here by myself like an idiot? It's great to see Bayley back. She looks great. She looks healthy. I mean, I think everybody was so happy to see her back. When we heard the music, it was really great to see her back. All the annoyances of her character, you know, that's all going to be put by the wayside because now we're going to see a little bit restructure her character. Not so much of the goofiness I met this time. And remember, like the change of Bayley in that time, she's one of the true success stories of NXT coming into that main roster. And I'll tell you, I mean, she was so over as a babyface. We all remember that. God, man, that was, and her NXT work at takeovers and all, fantastic. But when they did make that switch to make her heel, wow. That was an amazing turnaround. And she has embraced the heel character so well with the haircut and everything. It's just, you know, she's $1 million. She is a star. And now that she's come back after a long absence, oh man, let's see how much time they give her coming up on Raw. You could start off with her tomorrow on Raw with that, which I hope they will do. And they'll take some time to really tell that story. And just get a whole reason as to why this new faction she brought on board. She brought in some new company to bring on board. And as we all know, it's great to see Bayley back. It's great to see Bayley with these with the returning stars coming in to go to that main roster and get that call up they probably would have never gotten under Vince. The Vince McMahon ceiling is a real thing. And Triple H wanted to make a statement by saying, listen, I don't think this means that the independent wrestlers from other organizations are going to get brought into NXT and that whole system is going to play like that again. I don't think so. But the ones they worked on with and spent so much time with, I think Triple H has enough to say, you know what? We worked with these people in here. We polished them. We brought them in from the indies. We spent a lot of time with them. And some of them have trained out really good. Let's get them back over here. Let's get them on because they spent a lot of time in that performance center. We just can't throw them away. They shouldn't have been thrown away in the first place. That's why I feel like things were right here. And to easily get them back under contract and bring them back in wasn't hard for them because they were not picked up by other organizations. So why not? That makes sense to me. So I like it. And I say to me, that's the NXT thumbprint on the main roster. And maybe there's some other stars that will get brought on board. Look, when you look at Dakota Kai and Io Shirai being brought on board, I'm just going to say it like this. As far as I know, Johnny Gargano has not signed a contract. But we know that Johnny Gargano was so well liked in NXT, was so instrumental down there. I wouldn't be surprised at all if Johnny Gargano, being in that whole mix down there, is brought back into WWE and makes it to the main roster eventually. And there are other names we talked about this week from the NXT roster that were part of that time in 2018, 2019, those heydays of Triple H holding down NXT and really, you know, when you saw those Ring of Honor stars and all those people that were down there from other organizations and bring them back up. Look, you could very well bring Apollo Crews back up. You could very well bring, I mean, there's a number of names that are probably still down there. I don't know if Cameron Grimes is made for the main roster. I mean, maybe, but they're still giving him a whole lot to do right now down at NXT with working with the Braun Breakers and the Joe Gacy's of the world. So he's got things to do. So he's been very busy down there. I don't know what you do next. But then you see some of the stars that were from other organizations and now they're getting their way in. Judgment Day has a number of the stars that were all in NXT in the prominent point of Triple H. So Judgment Day should most likely get more focus. I wouldn't be surprised. But they went with the Mysterios thing right here. And like everything that was in the storylines, no retconning, no radical changes. SummerSlam was the right point to go ahead and close out some feuds, make some changes, tweak some directions, switch around some stars and where they were in the development. So you made the heel turn switch with Becky and Ronda, put everything into some normal logistics. And then you go ahead and start taking some of these stars from NXT that you think that if Triple H had it the right way, and they were giving those that were deserved of the main roster from all their time in NXT, Triple H is going to grant those wishes now. That's what he's doing here. And that's okay. But it's still going to come down to the fact that no matter how much you liked all these people in NXT, I understand it. I appreciate why you want certain stars to come in, but they're going to still have, regardless of the Vince McMahon ceiling, no matter if it's Triple H's NXT thumbprint into the mix of the main roster, what you have to understand, they still have to get over this crowd. I mean, Triple H is going to have to contend with the fact that they are trained of the WWE style, which is still Vince's style. You're not going to change that culture. You're not going to change that climate overnight. And so you're going to have to do certain things that are going to be still within the old realm of what Vince would do. And you still have Bruce Pritchard down there, and you still have other people that are within the circle that are going to have things done where it's still going to have to make the logical sense in WWE's light. You're not going to make this a wrestling company. It's not going to happen. And the broadcasting partners and the Nick Khans of the world, they're not going to change that part. Look at what they were able to do. I mean, the marketing campaign for Pure Water was point positive. Man, listen, you might not like the Vince McMahon creation of Maximum Male Models, but Max and Maxine Dupree, you got them set. You got Marseille and Mansois. And I'll tell you what, the shit they're doing right now with the Beachwear collection, the shit they did with the Pure Water campaign, that shit's funny. I'm laughing my ass off at this stuff. Somebody's figuring this out. And I kind of feel like this is like a Jeremy Borash kind of thing going on here. The kind of goofy, funny novelty thing they do right now with these male models. It works. Pure Water is the official water of Maximum Male Models. That shit's all funny. It's one of the things that's kind of a highlight of SmackDown for me, besides what there is going on. I like what they're doing here. Like, there's that. All the community stuff they had with Titus O'Neil at the start of the night and the pre-show. That's really cool stuff. Having your main big four shows, having the celebrities involved, where like Logan Paul is a good move. Bad Bunny being in the Royal Rumble, that's a good move. And just doing things like this where you are incorporating some stars into the mix. Listen, it works. I mean, I get it. That's what you have to do. I like all that. It's part of what WWE is that the other wrestling companies cannot do. But WWE is the end all be all. They are the biggest company. They could do a lot of things differently. Hell, look at the way that last match ended. We'll talk about that in a minute. So I talked now back to match number 2 of the night. Logan Paul against The Miz, and Maryse and Ciampa came out. And if you notice on the trunks of Miz, my balls are huge. I mean, that's a Vince thing. I'm sure that whole, gotta say the balls thing, like that kept going. People got into it. That's a Vince thing. And you know what? People got into it. They talked about it. They were into it. And that was like part of the storyline. And you can do something different next time around. But for this match, Logan Paul and The Miz did a really good job. I said it. They did not stick up the joint. Logan Paul did a good job of adapting. He trained. He worked really hard. He hit his moves. That frog splash to the table. I mean, we've seen a lot of wrestlers do it, but when you see a star like him make that move and take it, that's pretty damn good. There was quite a few things he did a really good job. And even Logan Paul, when there's certain things that he did where, I think it was, like a suplex or something like that. Or no, it was the off the top rope, right? And they went down. And like you could have seen where Logan Paul could have kept his shoulder over for the pin, but he took it off, and like they played off like they needed to have that 10 count. Both of those guys flat out exhausted. Ciampa got a little bit involved. They kicked him out. When he didn't get kicked out, you got AJ Styles out there. Makes sense. AJ Styles and Ciampa obviously have a feud together. So you give AJ a little bit of a shot in there. Great. Like that all worked out. That was good. Logan Paul had a really good night, man. And he did really good. By the way, you want a guy like that. If he's able to go and perform that well, and he's going to promote the hell out of the fact he just did that frog splash. Like you're giving him stuff where he's just not going to be afraid of kind of promoting that. Logan Paul's going to be all over the place promoting the fact he got to do that match. Like, he's going to be, I mean, the tag team match was one thing, but doing the singles match with The Miz and the moves he got to do in there, he's going to pimp the shit out of this all over his 50 million collaborative followers on Instagram and TikTok or no, YouTube, excuse me. He's going to go all over that. And that's really cool. Even on Twitter, I saw a nice big push about his frog splash. He pushed out there a little bit later on in the night. So he's going to get the headlines, and that's going to be helpful. And by the way, Nissan Stadium looked good for the show tonight. Sure, they said 48,000, probably more around 40. That's okay. But still a really good crowd and a hot crowd tonight. It sounded really good. It looked decorated really well. Match number 3, Bobby Lashley against Theory for the United States title. And they did some interesting things where Theory obviously outmatched by Lashley, but Theory doing a couple of quick things to try to sneak in a victory. That worked. He's crafty. He's a chicken sheet heel. So what they did with him is fine. Theory does need a heavy. I mean, he does need a heavy right now. For him to go into certain matches and for him to go ahead and be successful, they're going to have to find someone for him. And I know that nobody wants to do that right now where they're going to have this kind of thing, but I think Theory does need a big guy to come in and help him as an enforcer. Not so much like how AJ Styles at Omos, but maybe there's somebody else you have that you could bring in that will take care of Theory in the mix here. Because to him to go solo, for him to be the star he's going to be, we need to have that part going on. He needs, like MJF had his Wardlow. That's what Theory, I think, needs to complete the package. Because he's got the gab. He can talk. He can wrestle. He's going to be a main eventer. And I do believe that. You know, hey, the King, Dre Lawler and Booker T, they're pumping him up over commentary. So obviously Theory is going to be somebody that will still be looked behind. I don't think that even though Vince had where they did with him, I don't think Vince was wrong on Theory. I really don't. I think Theory's going to be somebody good down the long run. I don't know where he's going to go, but I like the idea of keeping a push on him, keeping him as a top heel. The only thing is that he's not going to be the top heel in that company because I think that would be best served, even if it's not Roman Reigns so much, man, Seth Rollins really fits that role really well. He's done a really good job. Now, with him and Riddle, that's a different story. We'll talk about that in a minute. But either which way, at this point, I knew Theory, to me, yeah, he's going to be a factor in this premium live event. At some point, we'll figure it out what's going to be. Mysterio's against Judgment Day. They've already had matches together. The DQ was not much of a difference, but they decided to go and go with the route where this no DQ could have benefited the Judgment Day, but instead, Edge returns to the ball of fire, a little more of that Brood type of feel to him. Still has the short hair, and he looked good on there. And he comes in, disrupts, Judgment Day gets screwed. Edge and Judgment Day now have to feud. How do you do that? The explanation is there. I want something, honestly, where if the Judgment Day is not going to go supernatural, I'd like to see where Edge is able to go back and persuade the team. What I want is this. Finn Balor was the end result here. And Finn Balor has done nothing with that team so far. They lost to the Mysterios. Finn Balor needs to be the odd man out. Regardless of what they did with the whole idea of bringing him into the fold, I didn't like that idea either. I liked it as a 3-person group, and I think we need to get back to that. And so I want Edge back with a Judgment Day to position, mentor Damian Priest and Rhea Ripley. I want that back because that Judgment Day worked. This Judgment Day does not work because they never went any farther. It's like Finn Balor was just a placeholder for whatever reason. And he took over. He was this radical that comes in, which there's not been much development of Judgment Day since. Let's just be honest. I want Edge back doing the throne thing with those two at his side as pillars. I want that back. I want that back really bad. I hope to get that. We can get that somewhere. I'm asking for it. Let's see what happens. Match number 5, already talked about Pat McAfee and Happy Corbin. And then we go to match number 6, Usos versus Street Profits. We've seen this match over and over. And Jeff Jarrett, as special guest referee, is the catalyst. And so, I don't care about the whole title picture at all. This match was going to be good anyway, and it really was. But what they decided to do with Jeff Jarrett was be the cancer, inadvertently, that was going to go ahead and shake up the Street Profits. So, we're going to go in that direction. They teased it tonight. The look at Montez and the fire of fury that he had in his eyes once Jeff Jarrett did not count the 3. Montez is already going to having heel tendencies and losing control in the match. So you build that uncontrollability, that craziness that Montez Ford comes out with, and position that to create a rift between him and Dawkins. Good. I want Jeff Jarrett back out to validate what was going on, because as we know, Jeff Jarrett did a great job out there. And by the way, I mean, this here pales in comparison to what's going to be going on tomorrow when he does Ric Flair's last match. What I'm curious is if Jeff Jarrett comes back on Raw on Monday night to deal with to have to be part of the Street Profits storyline, right? I want to see that, and I'm wondering if something happens with the Ric Flair's last match where there's some chant that has to come up with Jeff Jarrett that will change things up, because I want to see how he's going to be positioned after how things go. After Ric Flair's last match, when people are watching that, if the Nashville crowd is going to respond as such. I want to know. But regardless, I like the story in this match. I like that that's what I got for the match. I mean, the imminent breakup of the Street Profits, that's fine. The fact they did not beat the Usos, that's fine with me too. I think the Street Profits had a run, and that's it. But we don't need another group, much like the New Day, to have this kind of a hype thing. I think it's played its course. And we know Montez Ford is the breakout. And Angel Dawkins, to bring him out as a single star, we could have these two feuding with each other, and I'd be fine with that too. I don't know what you do, but I think Angel Dawkins could be something else in a different sense. Because we've exhausted Street Profits. They might not have been booked as well as they should have been. They never gave him tag team gold. If they did, I don't remember. That's how much it mattered to me. With the Usos, you just need to find some new opponents. I don't know who you find to do that, but they're going to have to build some new tag team contenders. Much like they're going to have to build new contenders for Roman. But we already know that with Roman winning tonight, Roman and Drew can go on with the program, and then you figure out what you're going to do next. Do you wait and keep Roman and Drew in the picture for the title, main event picture, until Cody comes back? Like, do you stretch Roman and Drew all the way to day one or the Royal Rumble? And that's what you're going to ask yourself. I mean, they could do it. It's a long time. It's not like you're going to have Roman out there every week to go ahead and take care of this. I mean, there might be some people who might take some time off. We don't know what they're going to do. And who might take a little bit of break, and like, we're going to have to figure it out. But I'm figuring now with Triple H, at the moment, they only got a few more weeks before Monday Night Football shows up. So they got to really build some momentum to try to get something to not lose some of that audience once football season starts back up again. Because right now you're talking about, what, 5-6 weeks to Labor Day? They need to get some shit done before that crowd starts tapering off, because Monday Night Football's back. And things are doing good with Monday Night Football. They're getting a good crowd. The announce team they have over there is good. The Manning cast is good. They might do some other stuff. You never know. The counter programming has to be something solid, something fresh. So Triple H has time to get that done. He needs to get that done before things get out of hand, and things might go ahead and the ratings might take a little bit of a dip. If you can avoid some of that, better for him. Riddle calls out Rollins, and this was inadvertent. Like, I liked it. Riddle coming in hot for this right here, and talking about the whole fact he wanted to have Rollins and decided to go ahead and have a beatdown, and Rollins took advantage of the situation. Rollins is so over, man. Rollins is main event, which is why I wish he wasn't a heel, and I wish he was going after Roman as well. Or if not, I would love to see Rollins injected into the title picture where he is screwing with Drew, he's screwing with Roman. And to be honest, I still see Theory in the mix. Like, I'd like that title picture to be something to do. Like, I mean, we know Theory's not going to go ahead and, I don't think he's going to be able to cash in and win, but we don't know. I mean, Drew could win, and then Drew could cash in on, Drew could be cashed in by Theory. I don't know what they could do, but I'd like to see something where Rollins was brought back to that main event title picture, because I don't think it's been great to see him in feuds like this. Like right now, having with Riddle, that's good. But I also think Riddle and the only thing I'm saying this too is because Riddle, if he's hurt, then Riddle can't be a part of this right now. But I could totally see down the line, if everybody gets back healthy again, by January, you could definitely have a roster of stars, a short list of people going after the title. And I don't know if Roman's going to hold on to that belt all the way through into 2023. But you could see Riddle, Rollins, Cody, and Drew all into the mix. If you want to add Bobby Lashley, go ahead. Do that too. Give me 5 or 6 names. Like I've always said, there should be a number of people vying for that title. And you just switch around who's going after it, contenderships, feuds to create contenders for the championship, all those kind of things. I'd like to see all that happen. And I hope that's what Triple H is decided to do too, in whatever role and creative he can do, and whatever kind of push or pull or stroke that he has right now to bring in. Yes, I just said stroke. Jeff Jarrett's finisher, right? Okay. So anyway, Liv Morgan, Ronda Rousey, SmackDown Women's title. Liv Morgan is sympathetic and likable and such a sweet baby face that even if her promos are not that good, it doesn't matter. Like, I've obviously figured that out. People didn't like this match in its form. And I get that part. For the fact that Ronda Rousey, was able to go and put submissions on Liv, and Liv was finding her way out. But she was being crafty. It's telling the story like she did when she was to be crafty enough to win Money in the Bank by finding her way back in to push Becky Lynch off after she almost got pushed off. The luck of being able to go ahead and kick Ronda Rousey in a knee to go ahead and get the pin on her to win the title in the first place. And then this continuous thing where Liv is encountering, the pressure of trying to hold on that belt and having different people going after her. And then Ronda Rousey originally trying to be the one to help, support her, be at her side because there was respect for Liv Morgan to have this belt. And then what they did tonight, listen, I don't care about how the outcome of the match was. The fact of, if you didn't like the way the match was booked to be, where Liv won like she did, I don't have no problem. I actually think the way the match was short, it had to be that way. And Liv finding another sneaky way to win, that's fine with me too. And then maybe she starts learning enough where she's holding on to the belt and she starts finding ways to win. And that's how you build that character out. So it's not just like fluke victories. You find that even though the fluke victories got her the belt, but then she gets better as she finds ways to continue to keep holding on to the title. That's the story I want to hear. I want to see told with Liv Morgan. She does. I mean, listen, I like her now. I'm now embedded in the fact she could be a champion for a while. I wasn't like this last year when they had her up against Becky Lynch, but the story they told with her and Ronda Rousey makes sense to me. Because the whole deal with her and Becky didn't work. Something with her and Ronda, and this is because Ronda wanted this to happen. This makes sense to me and I like it. And now I like Liv Morgan a lot more as a result of this. Her promos need to get better though. Maybe if they don't script her and she gets to talk more naturally now, hopefully that's going to be something that'll be done as well. That's going to help her better. Because I think if they let her just be able to talk and be herself, I think she can do better with that too. That might actually work as well. So Liv Morgan could turn out to be well after all this is done. So a very creative way to finish the match off with a 3 count while Liv was tapping out to an arm breaker, to the arm bar. That looked really good. And they gave us 2 angles. And I believe the angle they gave us at first was the one from behind where we couldn't see Liv tapping out. But they had another camera angle ready to go in the replay to show that she did. I'm like, wow. So you are getting the referee's point of view where you see Ronda has her shoulders down. And so the ref's going to count that and not look at the tap. And then honestly, the timing, Liv Morgan with the timing was perfect. 2.5 seconds before that last 3 count, the third hand down on the mat. And she's tapping vehemently. Great story. And this is enough for Ronda to turn heel? Yeah. Because we all think that Ronda would have some quick fuse, has a hot temper. So she would be quick to be pissed off here and then just like screw Liv. I love it. That match, the feud can continue. That's fine. I really like that way that story finished. Like, for me, forget about the 4 minutes, 35 seconds that was part of that match. That's fine. What they did right here, that finish made the match worth it. Like, that's the storyline angle that I wanted to see right there. That will give me reason to care about this feud. Now you care. Now it actually matters. So the women's division's good. They need to find some new stars in there. So I don't know what you do at that point. On the women's side of the SmackDown women's division, I mean, you're dealing with some stars that were, I'm going to just say it like this too. The choice of some of the stars that got called up from NXT, I'm going to say are speculative or kind of suspicious. Like, I like Aaliyah. She's nice to look at, but she's not been, they have not booked her well for anything. And the whole like winning over Natalya in like a record amount of time, I could care less about that. Notice they don't even talk about that anymore. And Shotzi's has been a non-factor. A non-factor. So what do you have with left? You got Lacey Evans, Lacey Evans is in Raw, isn't she? No, Lacey Evans is on SmackDown. That's right. They switched her back and forth. So you got Lacey Evans and Raquel Rodriguez. I think you're going to have to do something where either Aaliyah Aaliyah for the world in like that global kind of thing, the Arabian princess kind of feel to it, like to have Aaliyah in a match in Saudi Arabia or being positioned to the crowd in India and things like that. That international crowd, that's the flair, like that diversity. So she's going to have a reason to be there. It's kind of performative, sure, but that's okay. But Shotzi doesn't fit the role here. It's not, I just think they've booked her bad too. What you either do is you try to do a little bit of change to Shotzi. Do you bring back the Tank? Is that going to make much of a difference? Are you going to do anything to change the character at all? Will that make much of a difference? No. I don't think Shotzi was going to be that much of a go in the main roster in the first place. I never saw her as that. I still see her as indie. And there's nothing wrong with that. I just don't see her as a main roster star. I never did. So that's one of those that passed and cleared Vince McMahon's ceiling to that main roster. I just didn't get it. I don't get where she fits that role. I don't think she does. So then you're left with Lacey Evans and Raquel Rodriguez. And I think you have to look at somebody else. What I think you do is, on the SmackDown side, you bring in Toxic Attraction. Like, if you're going to bring in Toxic Attraction and Mandy Rose, you bring her up to the SmackDown side. That, I think, works. They're ready to go. They're ready to jump up there now. So, if you're going to have a call-up for women to fill the SmackDown side, figure out what you're going to do over there and bring up Toxic Attraction to SmackDown. That's why I think you go there with that. Plus, Braun Breaker. Eventually, I think if you're going to bring him up, don't bring him into the main, onto the Raw roster. I don't think that's going to be the spot. I think you bring him over to SmackDown and have him do something there. I don't know what, but I just feel like that's where you go. Match number 8 is Roman Reigns and Paul Heyman accompanying him versus Brock Lesnar. Last man standing match for the undisputed WWE Universal Championship. The Tractor. And I'm trying to remember, did we have another Roman Reigns? Well, like, Roman Reigns has done last man standing matches as well. And I forget which one that he did last time before. So there was one where Roman Reigns had one with Kane, right? Which, by the way, WWE likes to have these last man standing matches. They've done a lot of them in their time too. Let's just make that point. I'm looking at prowrestling.fandom.com. Oh, that's right. Last one they had was January 2021, the Royal Rumble, where Roman Reigns beat Kevin Owens. And I remember they had to go and pin Kevin Owens to some kind of rig or something like that. Wasn't that what it was? I forget. Or they had him handcuffed to some kind of rig. And that's how they took him out. And so they have to find some over-the-top way to go ahead and put this match together, because this was like the blow-off of the feud. And you had to blow off a feud that had already been blown off before. And now you have to find a way, because you have nobody else to put up against Roman Reigns. He's beaten everybody. You've now rebuilt Drew to a point where they could have him go after, because of his past run as champion himself and what he did to Brock Lesnar. So Roman Reigns and Drew McIntyre, you bring that feud back up, which is good. And then you just got to ask yourself now, what do you do now after? I mean, the feud should continue after Clash in the Castle, but what do you do right now with Roman to keep that feud alive, with the fact that if Roman wins, what are you going to do then? And I don't know what you do. These are all things I just think about, but they decided to incorporate the ditch digger, big caterpillar out there, for Brock to run around and run with. Look, I get it. You think of the milk truck, you think of the Zamboni, all this stuff they would do, right? And that's fine. So to bring this back was no surprise here, but they did go a little bit farther than they would normally do, where in a very Attitude Era moment, you have Roman Reigns thrown into the ditch digger, into the crate, to get tossed off from a very short distance. It was not a high drop from him falling out of the ditch digger to fall and be counted for a 10 count. And then you decided, okay, we already know that this match is the end of the night, so if they're going to screw up with the ring, let's do it. And Brock successfully is able to dig that crane down, the ditch digger, to pull up the ring and, uproot it like a tree. And I will say, seeing the uprooting of the ring from one corner and then Roman rolling all the way down off of there, that looks fantastic. Really, that is a moment you're never going to forget. That's like WrestleMania moment good. That was really cool. And people are going to talk about that. You're going to see that in highlights forever. Just like you always see every time, like either Big Show or Brock Lesnar, and then you see like the ring implode. It's the same idea. Like that's just one of those you're never going to see. You're just going to see it tonight, and that's what's going to happen. And that worked out really well. Theory did get his chance to try to jump in, but he got smacked around with the briefcase. That was cool. And they really made Brock impenetrable. Like he was so strong, and he was ragdolling Roman all night. And then they just started getting to the end, and then all the constant disruptions from the Usos, from Theory, from Paul Heyman himself, who Paul Heyman taking an F5 was incredible tonight. Like, what the hell, man? What is that guy doing taking that bump? A really tough bump to the announce table. Let me just tell you that. But then you did everything where Michael Cole is overselling the hell out of the fact that Brock Lesnar's basically going to get concussion from all the title shots to the head that Roman Reigns hit on him. And then the Usos and all collectively throw all this shit on top of Brock. And then Roman stands on top of the pile of debris that he has with Brock Lesnar underneath, who can't get up from underneath. And that's how you finish it. That's a pretty good way to finish the match. The main event was very good. They did a really good job tonight with a lot of booking on the show. We're getting a lot of things logically turned around, some new wrinkles and changes, but the overall result still comes to the same way. And I'm going to just say this before we close things out. Triple H, I'm not disputing he can't turn things around. I don't think he could do anything worse than make it just the same kind of level of interest that we already have. It's going to take some time. And I say that because of the fact that the core audience of NXT is the core audience of WWE for the most part. Maybe you have some other people that might have been AEW viewers, or might be just people that are watching indies and they'll watch this portion of NXT. They watch the black and gold NXT, but they would never watch the main event for the main roster for the life of them. but there's not much of an audience there. Like, to retain some of the audience that might have dropped off a little bit, what is that? A couple 100,000, maybe? So if you do it correctly, what? Triple H is getting to retain some of that audience back. What are you going to do? Make Raw get over 2 million again? Okay. So what? Raw needs to be building better audience than that. Same thing for SmackDown. So you still need to build young stars. You need to still bring in younger, newer viewers. What are you going to do with that? And that was the focus of my discussion on Wednesday. Some of the things that were done tonight, you make some logical changes. That's great. You're doing some things to change things up. What you still have to do is you need to create more people around the mix of every title or feuds and give them more heat, which they're doing, which they were doing already before the start of this year. Like leading into day one, I feel like there's been a number of feuds that have really stood out that made a lot of sense. Like, I mean, listen, the WrestleMania feud with Cody and Seth Rollins without a title was fantastic. Fantastic. Really enjoyed that. And then you look, I mean, really, so like the post-WrestleMania build has not been that bad. Like, we all talk about the fact that WrestleMania, after that, the WrestleMania offseason, well, this has not been much of an offseason. Like, I've not been bored and I've not been really, like, I'm not been very critically down on the product. Not any of that. But then this whole shakeup with Triple H coming in, this creates a whole different dynamic. It's still the matter of you're going to go up against all the normal factors that go along with this product, where you're going to have to build some names credible enough and get that audience to get them over. And you're not going to have that NXT Full Sail crowd to get the crowd over like they did with like Adam Cole or Johnny Gargano on the Way or the Old Teen Dream or whatever you want. Like, you're not going to get that NXT crowd. You got to make this WWE crowd that they've been working on to get more family oriented, that are not watching some of these stars, because they're going to see Io Shirai and Dakota Kai. They're going to say, who? You know that. A number of the people that are watching now, and plus, and also that global audience, you're going to have to find a way to go ahead and really build up these stars now and do what you're going to do. So I'm giving all the room possible to see where they're going to go. And we'll look what they're going to do on Raw, and we'll see what the aftermath of all this is. We'll talk about this on Wednesday. But in the meantime, I got to come back in front of this microphone tomorrow in about 24 hours from now to cover Ric Flair's last match, which I'm really looking forward to. I've been chomping at the bit to catch this show for a while now. I can't wait for it. Whew. It's going to be fun. And then after this, we take a bit of a break until we get to NWA 74. And then we get to Labor Day weekend with All Out and Clash at the Castle. Wow. This is going to be one, like, get a couple weeks to kind of rest and see where things build up. And then we get to all those pay-per-views coming up after that. Whew. Busy time for wrestling. Fun time for wrestling, too. I'm going to leave it there. Thanks for listening in. Catching the Wrestling Is Real podcast. Enjoy Ric Flair's last match. There will be a post show for that tomorrow. Come back for that, because wrestling needs us. Thank you for listening to the Wrestling Is Real podcast. You can find all previous episodes at wrestlingisreal.com or subscribe to the show on all major podcast outlets, including Apple, Amazon, Google, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. Follow the King of Podcasts on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at King of Podcasts, and search King of Podcasts on YouTube, or type youtube.com/JBRASCO951. This has been a presentation of the King of Podcasts Radio Network.